Welcome to the series on performance management DIY, doing it yourself. In this series, we'll focus on how to implement the Balanced Scorecard. So first thing we'll be doing is to work with the case of an online travel company. In this course, we'll be looking at how to go from coming up with your strategic map to the point of reporting performance as the case will be. So if you look at this company we have here, what we have here is an online travel company, and here we have about 9 strategic objectives listed out. From these strategic objectives, it shows that part of what the company wants to achieve is to lower the cost of operation by 30%, is to increase profitability by 13%, is to increase revenue by 55%, reduce customer waiting time to 1 minute. With this, they don't want to waste any time dealing with their customers. They want to retain 80% of their customer. They want to optimize their process across the different customer touch points. They also want to drive faster output. They want to improve critical skills, and lastly, they want to improve their operational tools. Now, after this, we will look at how we can make sense of all of these strategic objectives in something called the strategic map. Okay, this is what a strategic map looks like. So you have 4 perspectives of the Balanced Scorecard. This is common, and majority of us are familiar with this. You have the financial perspective, you have customer perspective, you have the internal process, you have learning and growth. You go to some places, they refer to it as people, as the case may be. But at the end of the day, you will need to have 4 perspectives of the Balanced Scorecard. Now, quickly, before we talk about the strategic map, these 2, internal process and learning and growth, causes these 2 to happen, meaning these 2, which are internal, impacts the customer, and financial, which are external. Now, let's quickly look at the strategic map. If you remember, you discover that while we're going through the strategic objectives of this organization, they had 9 things that they wanted to pursue. So, making sense of those 9 things, we had to plot them into what we have here that looks like a map. So with this map, it is easy for us to establish if there is a cause and effect relationship. So let's just quickly run through it. Improve critical skills, just like the company has mentioned. Improve operational tools, as the company has also mentioned. Now, if you improve your critical skills, it will help to optimize your process as an organization. If you improve your operational skills, it will also help to optimize your process as an organization, and at the same time, it will help you drive faster outputs. Now, if you optimize your process as an organization, what it will do is that it will go a long way to help you lower your cost or be in charge of your cost. Then if you drive faster output, it will ensure that you will reduce your customer waiting time to 1 minute, as the company wants to achieve. Now, if you reduce your customer waiting time, you will be able to retain your customers, as we have it here. Then if you can retain your customer, then the possibility of you increasing your revenue is very, very high. Now, if you increase your revenue, also the likelihood that you will increase your profitability, all things working together, increase profitability as a function of increase in revenue, and also as a function of lowering your cost or staying on top of your cost. Now, this is what we've done with the 9 strategic objectives that this online travel company wants to pursue, probably in the next 3 to 5 years, as the case may be. So it is very, very important that when you're working on a balanced scorecard for your organization, that you need to make sense of the strategy objectives that has been listed in the strategy document into a map like this that is called the strategic map. So the next thing to do is to look at how we can translate all of this strategic map into the scorecards. Okay, this is what your scorecard would look like. Now, the strategic map we talked about in the previous slide can be called or referred to as a tier 1 map, because what the strategic map focused on were more of the strategic objectives of the organization. Now, from that strategic objectives, we want to come up with a corporate scorecard, oftentimes referred to as tier 1. Let me quickly mention that when it comes to the scorecard, the balanced scorecard, there are 3 tiers. You have tier 1, you have tier 2, and you have tier 3. Tier 1 focuses on the corporate level. Tier 2 focuses on the departments, and then tier 3 focuses on individuals. So just to keep it that simple, so here, as far as the scorecard is concerned, you have the perspectives, which is financial, customer, internal process. Then you have objectives. The objectives, obviously, you will see were just carried from the strategic map and placed under the column for objectives. Then after objectives, you have measures. Now, what are measures? Measures simply are, okay, how do we want to go about measuring our increase in profitability, for example. Now, after that, you have targets. What is going to be our target for profitability? Like this organization, they did mention that they want to grow their profitability by 13%. So that could be a target there. Initiatives are more like actions. What actions do we need to take to be able to achieve this target? And then lastly, dependencies. Who are the dependencies? It could be individuals or portfolio owners, or it could be departments. Sometimes you can also have a column for timeline, because oftentimes, most of the time, some of these things at the corporate level fall through the crack when there are no timelines, and at the same time there are no owners clearly spelled out. Now, there's an interesting thing I need to quickly point your attention to, which is the numbering. So if you look at financial, you have F1, F2, F3. Now, this numbering is very, very important, because you will get to the point whereby you need to cascade all of this, where you need to cascade a scorecard to another scorecard, meaning cascading from tier 1 to tier 2. So whatever it is you are cascading from tier 1, for instance, if you are cascading increased profitability to tier 2 scorecard, and you want to use increased profitability, that means you just pick the number F1. With this, it is easy for us to track what is being cascaded from one scorecard to the other. So in a nutshell, this is what your scorecard would look like. So it's very, very important you have all of these columns when you're coming up with your scorecard. Okay, so in the process of building your appraisal system, some things are also very important. A good example will be the rating scales. So now the use of the word rating scales maybe because you want to combine 2 different appraisal systems for the purpose of your appraisal within your organization. So here you have the Likert scales, 1 to 5. Then you have the 3-pointer system, which is 1 to 3. Some organizations will tell you that, you know what, I prefer a 3-point system because I don't want people to hide under fairly performance or whatever it is. And some would say, you know what, a 5-point system is what will work for us. So what we have here are different rating scales. So the first here is the Likert scales, which is 1, which say the description is strongly disagree, and 5 is strongly agree. Now the 3-point system is 1, unacceptable, meaning the description performance was below expectation, 100% of goal was not achieved, while 3 is exceed expectation and performance, meaning performance was above expectation, delivered more than 100% of expected goals. That's a 3-point system. Then you now have a 5-point system. 1, unsatisfactory. Unsatisfactory could be failed to deliver tasks and expected deliverables within guidelines, quality, budget, and timeline. So for this individual to be scored 1, that means the person achieved below 50% of expectation. Now, let me also mention that it's not cast in stone. You can always get a tweak to see what will work for your organization depending on what you want to achieve as far as your performance principles or philosophies are for the organization. So you need to have a rating scale when you're building your system for performance appraisal. Also, it's also important for you to think through in terms of the appraisal cycle. More often, you find people appraising probably twice in a year. Some even do once in a year. But I think what most organizations, or what is recommended now, is that try to carry out on-the-spot appraisal. Give feedback, on-the-spot feedback. So here again, these are the different rating scales you can deploy in the course of building your appraisal system. Okay, so the next thing you want to work on will be your grading grid. So during appraisal, when people are being rated and at the completion of the appraisal, the exercise or the performance dialogue is concluded, there is need for all of this rating to be summed up and plotted into a grading grid. Now, this is what your grading grid would typically look like. So performance grading, below 50%, unsatisfactory, 51% to 70%, fairly satisfactory, 71% to 80%, achieved expectation, 81% to 90%, exceed expectation, 91% and above, outstanding performance. Now, you can have this distribution as would want within your organization, it's not cast in stone, but again, there should be something that should inform how you go about distributing the percentage. Now, if you look at the indicators, how do you describe someone who performed between 51 to 70%? So you have it there, marginal improvement required on delivery of tasks and expected deliverables within. So this gives guidance as to what needs to be done with these individuals, and also a feedback as to how or what this percentage of performance really means. So once you're done with your rating scale, you also need to come up with your performance grading as we have here. Okay, so what's the next line of action with our Balanced Scorecard? So what you need to do is to have your organization splitted into talent segmentations. Now, for our online travel company, in understanding the business model and the way the business is structured, we discover that there are 3 distinct talent segmentations or talent group or work group within the organization. We have the customer-facing type of jobs or departments. We have technology and we have support. Now, when you look at all of these talent segmentations, you would discover that there is something happening here. Now, first and foremost, why do we even have talent segmentation? Because you have 4 perspectives and you have maybe about 12, 13 departments within an organization. It's not the best and productive approach to start distributing weightings across the perspectives for each of the departments. So what happens is that at the end of the day, you're likely to have 15 different weightings across the perspectives for each of the departments. So what this does for you is to work smart. So you have this talent segmentation, and with this segmentation, it is easy for you to plot department under customer facing, financial 40%. So for departments under customer facing, the weighting for financial is 40%, for customer is 30%, for internal process is 20%, for learning and growth is 10%. Let me quickly explain the reason for this distribution. Now, customer facing, these are people who interact with customers and most often sell to customers. You will agree with me that the bulk of their work resides between financial and customer. Now, if you go to technology are more like people who work from the back end, support the customer facing guys. And because it's an online travel company, we want to assume that there is a department that is responsible for managing the online portal and at the same time managing the infrastructure that supports the online portal. So you see that the bulk of the weighting is under internal process, because that is where a lot of their work resides. Then customer. So you have 40% for internal process and 30% for customer. If you go to those in support, perhaps these are people in HR, in finance, in internal audit. This department falls under support. Under internal process, they carry 40%, and under customer, they carry 30%. So it's also important that we don't lose track of what customer could mean in some instances. Customer could be internal and at the same time it can be external. Now, if we take the case of our online travel company, and we have the departments here, we have call center, we have affiliate sales, we have quality assurance, we have IT infrastructure, we have web development, you have human resources, you have finance. So if you're going to plot them, obviously call center you will plot under customer facing. So for call center to be under customer facing, that means the weighting for financials for customer center is 40%. The weighting for call center under customer is 30%. The weighting for call center under internal process is 20%. Then under learning and growth is 10%. If you come down, if you look at quality assurance is best seated under support. So under financial, quality assurance will be 10%. Under customer, quality assurance will be 30%. Under internal process, quality assurance will be 40%. That is how you go about distributing your weighting. So once you're done with designing or in the process of designing your scorecard, you can also go into segmentation and weighting across the perspective. More often than not, we work as you're designing, you're working on your scorecard, you're also working on this framework. Now, it is better that you work on your framework alongside with your scorecard, because when you meet with the decision makers and you want to discuss this, you are looking at the scorecard and at the same time you are looking at components of the framework itself. So this is what the segmentation and weighting looks like. Okay, let's assume that we are done with everything that has got to do with fine-tuning the Balanced Scorecard. We have our approved performance management framework. So this is this is an example of a travel consultant within our online travel company that goes by the name John. Now this is the scorecard for John. So if you look at this scorecard, you will discover that what was cascaded into John's scorecard, which is a tier 3 scorecard, was F2, and under customer was C1 and C2. Then under internal process, IP1, then under learning and growth, LG1. Now, you see that the next column to numbers will be the weight. Remember what I said about numbers. With the numbers, it is easy for us to go and trace what was cascaded under financials for John. Now, for weighting, John is a travel consultant. For John to be a travel consultant, that means that John belongs to the talent segmentation referred to as customer facing. Now, if we go by the weighting, the distribution of weights for customer facing type jobs, you will discover, or you still remember, that the weighting there is 40%. So automatically what it means here is that the weight for F2 is 40%. Had it been what was cascaded for John was more than F2, probably he had F1 and F2, and it belongs to customer facing segmentation. So it's going to have probably that 40% splitted into two equals 20%, depending on how important that particular target or objective is in respect to John's portfolio. There's a likelihood that F1 will be 30% while F2 will be 10%. So you need to understand those jobs within your organization for the weightings to apply. Then the target is revenue, $50,000. Now, John was given this target at the start of the period. At the end of the period, John was able to achieve 10%. John was able to deliver $10,000. Now, the maximum score based on the rating scale adopted by this online company is a 5-point rater. The maximum score John can get is 5. However, by the rating scale that the company decided to deploy, John scored 1. Now, under customer, his target is 90% affiliate retention, meaning retaining their affiliates. Those who sell for the company, he needs to retain 90% of them. He was able to achieve 50%. The maximum score, the rate he can get, is 5%. The final score he got based on the performance dialogue between himself and his supervisor was 2. So if you go to C2, his target was to retain 98% of customers. He did 60%. The score is 2. Under internal process, 98% conversations with customers to be achieved within time. He was able to do 50%. Under learning and growth, completion of Amadeus course by April 2020. He was able to achieve that probably before April 2020, and he got his 5. So now if you do a computation of all of this, it will give you an idea of where John belongs to within the grading grid. From this computation, to derive at the final score for John, that means you need to take the total score from the final score from the performance dialogue between himself and his supervisor, which is 12, divided by the maximum score achievable, which is 25. Then you times it by weightings. However, to be sure that you are doing the right thing, you need to ensure that at each of the lines, what you're doing is you take total score. For instance, financial F2, total score, the final score there is 1 divided by 5 times 40%. You go to customer, 2 divided by 5 times the weighting for that C1, 2 divided by 5 times the weighting for C2, 2 divided by 5 times the weighting for IP1, 5 divided by 5 times the weighting for LG1. So when you have all of these percentages spelled out, you can now add them together. When you add them together, it will give you where John belongs to within the grading grid. So in all, this is how to go about calculating performance for talents within your organization. Okay, another thing we need to quickly talk about will be the Balanced Scorecard reporting dashboard. Now, it is very important that you have a dashboard for corporate reporting, for departmental reporting as well, and also for divisional reporting, depending on the OD, the organizational design obtainable within your organization. So you look at this dashboard and you can see that there is a way to track overall performance. So for all of the objectives have been tracked under each of the perspectives. their weightings, the timelines, the completion scores for each of them. How well are you doing as far as financials as you go? How well are you doing as far as internal process is concerned? How well are you doing as far as customers are concerned? How well are you doing as far as learning and growth is concerned? Now, when you track at the corporate level and you also track at the departmental level, all of this from the departmental level should have an handshake with what is reflected at the corporate level. With this, you will know real time what is happening as far as your goals and strategic objectives are concerned within the organization. These can be automated. So it is very, very important to track these things. You can't just leave them hanging. You need to have a dashboard like this that can track from one tier into the next tier. Okay, quickly permit me to make reference to all the editable templates as far as the Balanced Scorecard is concerned. For everything that has been shown you in this course, you can get the editable templates for the Balanced Scorecard and more on the website femiojomo.com, as you have it there. So there you find from the editable performance management framework to the appraisal form editable version, and a whole lot of templates that will be useful to you in the course of working on your performance management system. So feel free to visit the site to access these templates. So in designing your performance management system, something is also very, very important. It's referred to as outcome management, consequence management. I mean, after people display some level of performance within the organization after a period of time, there is need for consequences. So you need to come up with a consequence framework, whatever it is that you want to call it. However, what you have here is just an example, a simple example. So you borrow from the performance grid. Below 50% unsatisfactory. What is the performance consequence for such performance? What kind of support will be given to that individual if there is need for support? As the case may be, 51% to 70% fairly satisfactory performance. What is going to be the performance consequence? So you are required to insert the consequence for the level of performance within a financial year in something like this, in a grid like this. It helps to plot and to reward individuals within your organization. So you need to be very, very creative around this. You don't want to lose your high flyers, and at the same time, you don't want to continue to pull laggers with you in the course of from one financial year into another financial year. Alright, so before we bring this course to an end, let's quickly talk about the Balanced Scorecard nuggets. First and foremost, there's no Balanced Scorecard without strategy or strategy objectives. Like you've seen in this course, the strategy objectives comes from the strategy document or whatever it is. It gives guidance to whatever we come up with on the strategic map. So if you don't have a strategy document, you don't have strategy objectives, you don't have any business with the Balanced Scorecard. It's a strategic tool. The design and deployment of Balanced Scorecard can be challenging, and as such should be owned from the top. I mean, executive management needs to be a part of it. It needs to be championed by them. They need to own it because oftentimes the Balanced Scorecard is seen as a complex tool. So when the executive management team appreciates the value the Balanced Scorecard can bring to the table, irrespective of the perception of how complex it is, then everyone will be willing to roll their sleeve and sit down to ensure that justice is done as far as the deployment of the Balanced Scorecard. It's also important to note that perfecting the use of the Balanced Scorecard requires time, regardless of the sophistication of your organization. Even the seemingly sophisticated organization where you have high flyers all around, they also struggle with the Balanced Scorecard. So when you find the organization or a a large percentage of organizations struggling with the deployment or even understanding how to go about cascading, because that's really where the challenge really is most often. Be rest assured that those who have gotten it right also took time to get it right. It's also important that scorecard owners are also a part of the alignment process. That means the process of cascading. It is not advisable that some group of people will sit down and cascade from one scorecard to the other and just want to hand it on to the owners who are meant to work on the components of the scorecard. No. Owners of scorecard should be a part of the process. They should understand why the scorecard in the first place. They should understand the techniques of aligning scorecards. They need to understand your performance management framework. It's very, very important. So it's also important to know that Balanced Scorecard lacks behavioral tracking, which is also one of the weak points, if I can say weak points of the Balanced Scorecard. So more often you find organizations combining the Balanced Scorecard, the BSC, with BAS for them to have a robust system. You can look into this as well. Now, lastly, objectivity and measurable KPIs are very, very important when it comes to the Balanced Scorecard. As a matter of fact, one of the success stories of the Balanced Scorecard has been the way it's been able to help us derive objective KPIs. It's not something that tries on subjectivity. So as much as possible, when you sit down to think through target setting and all of those things, coming up with KPIs, ensure that these are objective KPIs that can be measured. If they cannot be measured, then they shouldn't find their way into the Balanced Scorecard. So on this note, I would encourage you to go ahead and try it out in your organization. Good luck.